Welcome to Commerce with Karanta Lane, your complete academy for business, accounting, and economics.
All right, today we're going to dive into one of the most fundamental ideas in all of economics, supply. You can think of it as the hidden engine that really determines what gets made, what shows up on store shelves, and pretty much what our world looks like. So to kick things off, let me ask you a quick question. Just imagine for a second that you're a baker. You're great at it, and overnight, the price people are willing to pay for your amazing bread just doubles. What's your very next move? I'm going to go out on a limb here and guess your first thought was something like, heck yeah, fire up the ovens, we're making more bread, right? Well, if that was your gut reaction, then congratulations, you've just intuitively understood the core economic principle we're going to break down today. So yeah, that split-second decision you just made as our pretend baker, that's the perfect way to start unpacking how supply really works. So let's get a little formal for a second. What is supply? Well, economists define it as the amount of something that a producer is both willing and able to sell at a specific price. And those two words are absolutely key. Willing, because you see that bigger profit margin and you want in, and able because you actually have the flour, the ovens, and the staff to get it done. You know, that intuitive choice to bake more bread when the price skyrockets isn't just a smart business move. It's actually a basic economic rule. It's called the law of supply. And the law itself, it's actually beautifully simple. It just says that there's a positive relationship between price and the amount that gets supplied. In other words, when one goes up, the other tends to go up too. They move together. So here's the rule of thumb. When the price goes up, suppliers are motivated to supply more. And when the price goes down, they supply less. Now, see that little note at the bottom? That is super important. This whole rule only works if we assume everything else, like the cost of your flour or the rent on your bakery, stays exactly the same. We're going to come back to that in a big way. And this is where economists get all visual. They take this relationship and plot it on a graph, which gives us the famous supply curve. And because of that positive relationship we just talked about, the curve almost always slopes upwards. Higher price means a higher quantity supplied. I mean, it just makes perfect sense, right? If you're trying to make a profit, you're going to make more of the thing that's making you more money. Okay, so let's look at our first big scenario. What happens when only the price of your product changes, and I mean nothing else? Right. When the price is the only thing that's different, we don't need a whole new graph. We just move to a different spot on the line we've already got. This distinction is so critical. Let's put some numbers to this. Let's say, right now, the price for your product is £7, and at that price, you're making 10 of them. We'll call that point A on our graph. Now, boom, the price jumps up to £9. Following the law of supply, you crank up production to 14 units. We've just moved up the curve to a new spot, point B. In economics jargon, this is called an extension in supply. So what happens when the price goes the other way? Let's start back at our original point A, £7, 10 units. But this time, oh no, the price crashes down to just £4. Suddenly, it's not as profitable, so you scale back and only supply 7 units. We've moved down the curve to point C. And you guessed it, this is called a contraction. Okay, so that all makes sense. But hey, remember our little asterisk, that whole all other factors stay the same thing? Well, what happens when they don't? This is where the real world gets messy and a lot more interesting. So, let's go back to our bakery. What if the price of bread stays exactly the same, but the cost of your most important ingredient, flour, suddenly goes through the roof? Is that going to change how you do business? Oh, you bet it is. These outside factors, the things that aren't the final price of your product, have a name. They're called non-price determinants. And when one of these changes, it's a game changer. It doesn't just nudge us along our nice, neat curve. It fundamentally changes the entire production equation. It forces us to draw a whole new curve. We call this a shift. And you can see here just how dramatic this can be. Let's say your flour costs go way up. Even if you can still sell your bread for £7, you simply can't afford to make 10 loaves anymore. Your profits are crushed. Maybe now, at that same price, you can only make 2. The entire supply curve has been yanked inwards to the left. So this leads us to the really big question. What are these powerful forces that can just redraw the entire supply map? Well, economists have identified 6 major players. Let's call them the supply shifters. And here they are, the big 6, the cost of your raw materials, any changes in technology, new government taxes,
government payments to you, called subsidies, the number of other companies joining or leaving the market, and finally, wildcards like the weather and other natural factors. Let's quickly see how these can rock the boat.
This table lays it all out, but let's just talk it through. Take technology. Let's say you invent a super fast oven. Now you can make bread cheaper and faster. That means at every single price point, you can supply more than before. That's a shift to the right. Or how about natural factors? Imagine a huge drought wipes out the wheat crop. The cost of your flour skyrockets, you can't produce as much, and your supply curve shifts hard to the left. A new government tax on bakeries would also shift it left, but a subsidy, which is like the government giving you money, would shift it to the right. See how it works?
So if there's one thing, just one thing you take away from all this, please let it be this slide. A movement is caused only by a change in the product's price, and you stay on the same line. A shift is caused by one of those other factors, those game changers, and you have to draw a whole new line. It's a whole new world.
Here's a really easy way to think about it. Whenever you're looking at a situation, just ask yourself this one question. Are we just changing the price tag on the item, or are we fundamentally changing the rules of how this item gets made? Your answer tells you everything you need to know. And I'll leave you with a final brain teaser. Let's say a company invents an amazing new robot that makes building the latest, most popular smartphone way cheaper and faster. Does that new robot cause a movement along the supply curve for that phone, or does it shift the entire curve? Once you can answer that, you've got this.
Thanks for watching Commerce with Elaine. Don't forget to subscribe for more lessons in business, accounting, and economics. Keep learning smart and score that a star. I'll see you in the next video.